Being in a band can be one of the most fun and coolest things you'll ever do. But starting a band and running it effectively is not easy for people like me or you. Let's find out exactly what it takes to be successful. Bobby Borg here, your music business coach with short, no BS advice that can help you turn your passion for music into a more successful business. Over the last 30 years, I've drummed in major label bands signed to Atlantic, wrote several music business books published by Billboard, and taught at major universities like USC Thornton. From finding vision, goals, and teamwork, this brief 40-minute seminar is going to teach you everything that you need to know about starting and running a band.
What's happening, everybody? My name is Bobby Borg. Based on my book, Business Basics for Musicians, let's go ahead and get right into this and start with part one, which is finding band members. And we're going to go ahead and start with number one, which is school. So if you're going to high school or you're going to college, one of the best ways to find other musicians is to look around, see if you see anyone walking down the hall with their guitar case, or maybe on lunch break actually practicing, or actually in the school band itself is also another great way to find musicians. Some of the coolest bands have formed in school. Green Day formed in school. The band Fish actually formed in the University of Vermont. When I was going to Berklee College of Music, one of the groups that actually ended up becoming very, very successful was a group called Dream Theater, and they were certainly practicing in their infancy stages in the rehearsal rooms. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be your school. It could be, the high school down the block. It could be the college down the block or in the next city over. So definitely schools are definitely one of the best ways to find musicians. Let's move on to number two, which is open jams. So open jams, also known as open mics, is a place actually in, let's just say, for example, a bar or club setting where the club puts on a night where there isn't necessarily a particular band or group of bands playing. What it is where musicians will come in and they'll put their name on a board, and then maybe somebody hosting the night will call up musicians to play. So guitar player will come up and play, drummer will come up and play, bass player will come up and play, etc. And this is a really, really good way to actually meet musicians. When I was living in New York City, I used to go to open jams all the time. When I was living in Los Angeles, I would go to open jams all the time. And even if you don't get up and play, you're hanging out in the audience and you're seeing all of these different players go up and jam out. And typically, many of these players are free and they're looking for things to happen. They're in between work. So this is a perfect way. And listen, I've been at jam sessions. I remember I was playing at one jam session in Los Angeles. I was like, wow, this bass player is really awesome. And then afterwards, I talked to him and he was like, I used to play with Billy Joel, I mean, so it's not like, you have just people that can't play or people that can't find bands. You have some really amazing people that are in between work as well. So that could be another really amazing way to find some great musicians. Okay, moving on to number three would be to ask other bands. So asking other bands, you guys, I mean, this makes sense, right? Because obviously musicians know musicians, right? So go out and see other bands that are already playing and, just go up after the show and just say, hey, you guys were amazing. I'm putting together a band and here's some of the players that, I'm looking for, the style I'm looking for, the look I'm looking for. And almost always, like, musician will know a musician and will make some sort of referral to you. Whether or not it ends up being right, who knows? But it's definitely a good source, So again, go out to clubs, see other bands play, or if you're not old enough to get into clubs, maybe there's a band playing at a youth center, a school dance, or at a party. So definitely asking other bands is a great way to find members for your own band. Okay, let's go on to number four, which is stealing band members. Now, you definitely don't want to get into any feuds with other, local bands, but there's definitely been examples of where musicians get stolen from other bands to end up in your band. I mean, I think even the Queen singer ended up getting into Queen that way, right? I believe that some of the other members were watching him in the audience, thought he was amazing, and then afterwards went back and swooped him up and said, hey, we want you in our group. And they got together and it clicked and it worked, and the rest is history, right? So, definitely the way to do this is just to go out check out other bands that are performing, and this is a really, really good way to audition people too, right? You're sitting in the audience, you're seeing them play, you're seeing how they move on stage, you're seeing how well they perform, how well they play guitar, sing, play drums, etc. You're seeing how they're interacting with the audience, the perfect audition. Again, you just don't want to get into any feuds with any other bands in your local towns. And you also have to consider something here too, right? If you can so easily steal away a musician from a band, can they then later on down the line be very easily stolen away from your band? So that is something that you definitely have to consider with this strategy. But nonetheless, stealing other musicians from other bands is something that you could definitely look into. Moving on to number 5 is asking local music stores. So listen, almost every city or town has some sort of local equipment shop. Like here we have Guitar Center, we have Sam Ash. And these people are dealing with musicians all day long, right? I mean, people are coming in to buy drums, buy guitars, buy picks, buy sticks, buy guitar straps, and they have to know somebody. And it's really good. I mean, I used to go up in New York City, I used to go up to Sam Ash and I used to talk to the head of the drum department all the time. And I would know him on a first name basis. And he'd say hi when I came in. It's good to actually network there at your local music store because it is really a hub for a lot of different musicians. And this could be a great way for you guys to find the right musician for your band. All right, let's move on to number 6, and that is contact local magazines and radio stations. And what I mean by this, you guys, is, contact the local journalists of, your local music blog or music magazine, or contact, the local radio DJ that maybe might be the DJ at the local college, or, maybe some local podcaster or something that has a really cool local podcast show, and essentially reach out to these people and just say, look, I mean, you guys cover the local scene and you've been covering it, for years. Certainly you have to know of maybe a drummer from a former band or a guitar player from a former band, or somebody that a band that broke up and maybe the players are looking for new acts. Certainly the DJ at the radio station that has done interviews with local acts or knows the local scene or goes out to local clubs, certainly they have, some idea of the music scene and might certainly know some players that are open and available. So definitely think about contacting your local music magazine or blog or your local radio station or podcast or whatever the case might be. This could be a good source for finding band members. So moving on to number 7 is contacting a local music teacher. Many musicians, when they learn how to play, are going to get some sort of private instruction. I mean, yeah, certainly there's people that Google lessons and, YouTube lessons and things of that nature, but many people that really want to know how to play are going to take guitar lessons, drum lessons, vocal lessons. So just look through, Google like local music teachers in your area and call them and just say, hey, listen, I've heard a lot about you. I know that you've been teaching in town for many years. And, we're putting together a band. It's an alternative rock band. It's whatever the case is. And just say, do you have any students that you're working with currently that you might think would be a really great fit for a young alternative rock band that's starting out, let's just say, for example, and they would probably have a couple students that fit that description, right? Or you might say we're starting a pop group or we're starting a rap group or whatever it is. We're starting a metal group, and they'll probably say, yeah, I do have a student that comes in and takes lessons from me, and he's a growler or he's a rapper or whatever the case is, and they might be able to turn you on to this. I mean, again, you guys, think about this, right? So it's not the direct way of finding a band member, it's an indirect way, but it's certainly a really, really good technique and you should consider using it. Moving on to number 8 is bookers and bartenders. Look, your local clubs host, bands all the time, right? And the bookers that are actually booking the bands in these clubs, I mean, they know the local scene really better than many people, right? So contacting your local club and just saying, look, we're an up and coming band in the area, or we're putting together a band in the area. We're wondering if there's any really good groups that you used to work with that maybe broke up, or if you know some really great musicians that are looking to get into an act. That is a really good way to actually find new band members. In fact, when I was in Boston, I actually auditioned for a group because the club owner and booker told me about them. They said, hey, there's this one band that's looking for a drummer, and this group was fantastic, and I went and I auditioned for them. So this is definitely a good source. And then, while you're in the club, the bartenders are there and they're hanging out, and while they're serving drinks, they're paying attention to literally every single band that's coming on stage. So just having a brief conversation and just saying, hey, how's it going? I'm a new artist starting a group in the area, and I was wondering, if you know of any really good guitar players, or you've seen any bands with really amazing guitar players that I should know about. So this is a really good technique, and definitely something that you should use to help you find the next players in your band. Moving on to number 9 is networking at conventions. There's something called the NAMM show. The NAMM show is a convergence of equipment manufacturers that typically happens in Los Angeles in January, and it also happens, I think, in rotating cities in the summer as well. And I think they've even hosted the event online, But in any case, if you can make it out to the NAMM show, it's an amazing place to meet and maybe, and look for other musicians. Because think about it, right? It's a convergence of equipment manufacturers, right? So they all get together here to make themselves available for buyers of equipment. But who plays the equipment? Musicians, right? So the musicians show up here as well because they're looking for endorsements. They're coming by to say hi to the equipment manufacturers. And this is a really great way to just walk around, and you can even see people just like jamming and trying out instruments, and you can walk them to say, wow, you're a great player. You live local here. Or where are you from? Maybe that person is coming to Los Angeles, but they live in Kentucky. Who knows, right? But it's definitely a great way just to kind of put the word out. And if anything, you could put it out to the equipment manufacturer themselves. And you could just say, look, do you know of anyone? Can we give you a flyer? Can we circulate a flyer with you? Can you maybe post this on your website? You never know, but this is definitely a technique that I have done myself, you guys, when I was looking for a bass player. I went to the NAMM show, I went to the different endorsement people, handed out posters to them, flyers to them, gave them the information, and that led to some really good leads. So something that you might consider. Number 10 would be to use message boards. So what are message boards? Message boards are essentially a place online where you can post like, musician wanted kind of stuff. Craigslist, let's just take Craigslist, for example. Craigslist could be a great way where in the musician section, you just write band looking for, musician of this caliber. Now, I know Craigslist can definitely draw a whole lot of people. So you're going to have to be prepared, with the people that call you. It could be really great people, could be crazy people, but definitely I think it would be a technique that you should consider. And putting out these types of ads, you guys have historically led to some really amazing bands. Like Motley Crue, for example, put out an ad like this looking for, I believe, a guitar player. Kiss actually did the same thing as well. So, occasionally you never know. I mean, the whole idea is you got to put your irons in many different fires, throw the hook out into the lake and try to fish in different areas, and you might come up with something. So all these ideas might not work for everybody, but they're definitely things that you might want to consider trying. So moving on to number 11 is social networks. Of course, social networks, right? I mean, it's just like, that goes without saying. I mean, posting something on your Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, any way that you can get the message out about the fact that you're looking for new players on social media is definitely, I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, it could have been number one. So think about putting something cool up online where people can see it and just kind of put the feeler out there and see what happens. So social media is a great way to get your message out there wide and fast. And it's definitely something that, you know, we should seriously consider when you're looking for new players. So moving on to number 12 would be tastemaker fans. Fans of music around town that are cool and hip and know all of the new cool up and coming bands that are forming and playing. I mean, they're the go-to person. You know, they know where all the cool parties are. They know where all the cool bands are playing. They know all the cool musicians in town. You know, so find that person. That person is easily identifiable at your school, in your high school, in your college, you know, at the local music store. Let's just say, for example, you can meet them there. And these are the people that usually are a great source of information. So ask around, ask music fans. They don't have to play an instrument. You can just say, hey, I know you're really into music and you go out to a lot of shows. You know, we're a metal band and we're looking for a new guitar player. Do you have anybody in mind? Again, you know, you're putting lots of irons into many fires to kind of, you know, fish out your potential band members. So definitely try this strategy because it's definitely something that potentially could work. Moving on to number 13 is rehearsal rooms. So many cities, certainly in New York and Los Angeles and Boston, where I've lived, have rehearsal complexes, right? Places where bands can actually pay to go and rehearse because, you know, it's loud when you want to, you know, fire up your amps and play. So where are you going to do that? Well, people form businesses. They form complexes where people can rent rooms for an hour and practice 2 hours, you know, et cetera. They can even do what's called a lockout where they have the room from month to month. So find out where local rehearsal complexes are in your neighborhood, in your city, and go walk through the halls. They usually have some sort of message board, put up a poster, you know, maybe when bands are on break and they're hanging out in the parking lot or whatever, you could just say, hey, what's up, you guys? You know, I'm looking for a great guitar player or drummer. And that certainly could be a way that you get a recommendation. I mean, let's face it, right? You're going to the source. You're going to where musicians are, and this could uncover someone that could be really great. So definitely consider this as a strategy. Okay, moving on to number 14 is hang out at your local record shop. You know, for example, here in Los Angeles, we have Amoeba Records. When I was growing up in Princeton, New Jersey, we had the Princeton Record Exchange, and so many, you know, towns. Boston has Newberry Comics. I mean, there are so many of these small independent record shops across the country. I mean, vinyl is still selling really big, and people like to go to these record shops to hang out, you know, check out records, be around other like-minded people. And this potentially could be a great way where you meet other musicians actually there hanging out, looking for music. You might see, you know, a wanted, you know, poster up there or musicians looking for bands. You know, you might see a poster, or you talk to the owner and you just tell the owner, like, look, we're an upcoming band. We're looking for someone of this particular, you know, caliber or style or look. And certainly, again, this could be a really good opportunity to, you know, find the right band members, you know. So again, not everything is going to work for you, but you have to exercise all your different options. Moving on to number 15 is going to be church. On Sundays, Saturday nights, whatever the case is, a lot of churches have actual musicians playing in the church, right? And you would be surprised at some of the groups that have formed because they met in church. You ready for this? The Beatles. Typically speaking, churches, you know, have some really, really good musicians. So this could be another way that you find the right players for your bands. I know what you're thinking, right? I mean, like, you know, rock and roll and, like, you know, the music industry and church, you know, they're kind of two contrasting things. But like I said, you guys, you got to definitely exercise all your different options so that you can find the right player to get your band off the ground. So now that you have your potential band members, let's talk about part number 2, which is vision, to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And we'll start with number 1, style and direction. So you guys, this is huge. Style and direction. What kind of style are you generally going to be playing, and what direction is the band generally going into? Why is this important? Because the number 1 reason why bands break up is for creative reasons, right? So you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, just to make sure that you actually really have the right players, right? Because you don't want, like, 6 months from now, someone saying, I don't know, this band is like a little heavier than I imagined, or it's not as pop as I imagined. And this is such a common problem. And the last thing you want to do is have spent all that time trying to find band members and then get in a room and start working. And then 6 months later, it just all falls apart, because that is a big stinking waste of your time. And there's one thing that we all need more, and that is a lot more time. So we don't want to waste the precious time that we have. So definitely make sure to get together and have some sort of confident conversation about the style and the direction. Okay, moving on to number 2 is revenue generators. So, definitely have some sort of discussion about, the products and services you guys are going to be creating. Like, is that kind of the idea? We're just going to record music in our bedrooms and we're going to actually go ahead and put it up on Spotify and just let it stream? Or are we going to record music and then also potentially make some vinyl, make some CDs as well, and put together a live performance set, rehearse, and actually go out and start playing, right? Not all bands are doing this these days. A lot of people are just writing in their rooms, and then at the very, very most, like maybe doing some sort of online performance. So a lot of people aren't like gearing up and rehearsing and going out and play. So this is definitely something that you want to discuss, right? Because this could be a no deal for a lot of people. So also another thing is, do you guys plan on making some merchandise and getting some t-shirts made and getting that out there and selling? And the reason why this is all important to talk about also, you guys, is because a lot of times some of the musicians that you think might have been perfect for your group end up not being perfect because they don't want to really make any investment. They don't really want to take it to this level. So just having this discussion is actually a really, really good thing to do to make sure that you actually really did pick the right band members. Moving on to number 3 is level of success. So definitely, now that you've found some players and you're having this discussion, you definitely also want to talk about the level of success. Oh my God, I can't tell you how many groups that I formed thinking this is going to be it. We're going to go for it. We're going all the way. We're going to the top. And then it's just kind of like a fun thing. It's like kind of like a hobby for one of the players, and they're just like, oh, well, I was just kind of doing this for fun while I'm in school to play parties and to meet people and things like that. And they're going to go off to interview for computer jobs or something. And this is your job. There is no other job. You might think, right, that everybody wants to, make it and this is what they want to do. But a lot of people don't think that way. A lot of people are afraid to go for their dreams. A lot of people want sort of that safe path, and they aren't willing to kind of go for it. So definitely get a sense from the other people in your group, where their head is about this, because really it could be something that ends up breaking down, the group later on, and you don't have time to waste. So have this discussion. Moving on to number 4 is values. So values are the things that are the most important to you. This is important to have the discussion with your players because, what is important to them? So for me, what was really, really important for me is being recognized as a really good musician, being recognized as being in a group that was really tight and really well rehearsed, and being in a group that made people better people. It was all about being the best that we can possibly be. And this is not the values of everybody, you guys. Some people are playing music to to party, and just have a good time and just be the center of attention. So have this discussion, like, what are your values? What are important to you? What do you stand for? Because these are the core things that make up the vision of the group and are important, that everybody is sort of connected and is thinking the same way, or your group is not going to last. So make sure to have this discussion. Moving on to number 5 is branding. Now, branding is a very, very important part of sort of the overall image or vision of where the group is going, right? A lot of groups have really succeeded on their branding, their sense of image, their sense of style, their sense of dress, what they portrayed. And this is a big part, in the entertainment business, because after all, at the end of the day, we're entertainers. So, what's kind of the vibe? How are we going to present ourselves on stage? What is the story behind the group? What's going to propel us and be sort of unique about like what we stand for and our cause as a group and what we're going to mean to other people. This is important because, again, if you have people that have different ideas about this, it's kind of like being in a rowboat and I'm rowing this way and you're rowing that way and the other member's rowing this way. You're not going to get anywhere, So we all have to be on the same page, how we're going to present an identity to the audience so they create a certain image of us in their minds. So this is the last element of creating a vision, but certainly one of the most important ones, okay? Because in order to really connect with people, you have to mean something to them. So make sure, as part of your vision and making sure that everybody's on the same page, that you definitely have a discussion about branding. All right, so now that we've discussed your vision, let's go to part 3 and talk about your goals and what you want to accomplish. Let's begin with months 1 through 3. Okay, the first 3 months are going to be absolutely crucial. This is where you have to get into some sort of rehearsal room on some sort of regular schedule. That rehearsal room could be somebody's basement, or it could be a rehearsal studio, maybe where you get what's called a lockout, where you rent it out on a monthly basis and you get in there on a regular schedule. I mean, like Monday at 6 o'clock, Wednesday at 6 o'clock, Friday at 6 o'clock, Sunday at 12 o'clock. You literally treat it like a job, and you get in there and you start throwing out riffs and you start throwing out beats and you start throwing out lyric ideas. And this is where you're actually going to start to really formulate your style and your sound, and you're going to try to get that vision sort of into fruition. You're going to try to imagine your vision through your music and what you're trying to communicate. This is an extremely, extremely important time. And in the best case scenario, you want to shoot for maybe 10 solid song ideas, okay? Then kind of once you kind of have that together, then you might actually start inviting some friends over to the rehearsal room and inviting their friends of friends, people that are in your realm and vibe of music, and start doing rehearsal performances in front of them. Get a gauge for, how people are feeling about your music and how you feel about it when you're actually performing it in front of people. Is it kind of, what you want? So here's where you're tweaking things a little bit. You might even actually go out and maybe do some small gigs like house parties or something of that nature, or anywhere that you can get in front of people to get sort of a vibe of how people are feeling about your music. So the idea here in the first 3 months is all about your songs, all about your sound, all about getting feedback and tweaking things, because make no mistake, you guys, if you don't have the songs, you absolutely have nothing. All right, now let's go ahead and look at months 4 through 6. Okay, in the next 3 months, now what you might want to do is you might want to start thinking about, what do all your lyrics, mean? What are you saying? What are you vibing? And maybe kind of start to get your narrative or story together. What is this band about? What is this band stand for? So you want to get that in your in your bio, sort of a nice encapsulation of what you are as an artist. From there, you might want to move into getting some really great pictures done. You get a good photographer, someone that knows his shit, maybe that comes down and gets some visuals of you rehearsing in the studio or writing songs, or maybe some visuals of you like hanging out in cool areas of your town that really capture the true spirit of who you are and what your story is all about. Then you start building your socials a little bit, start putting stuff out there, start hooking up with fans and like other-minded people that are interested in your style of music, and start kind of, generating a little bit of buzz and word of mouth here, about what it is that you're doing, and a little excitement about what it is you're doing. You might even book a gig or two in maybe a small local club that is not too high production and things, where, there's a lot of proof that you got to show them in terms of, the action you're getting. Small clubs, kind of low maintenance stuff where you can, again, get in front of people and you can really just start tweaking, your whole story and your whole vibe. You might even hire a songwriting consultant at this particular time now to really come in and really kind of structure your songs and get them to be the best that they possibly can be. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at months 7 through 9. Okay, now the next 3 months are going to be huge, because here is where we're going to hook up with a producer that really kind of understands what we're trying to do. We're going to pay a little bit of money, and we're going to go in and we're going to get our songs professionally recorded and mastered. This is an extremely important part of the whole process, of course, because now, this is our product. We're putting our product on tape, so to speak, right? Once we have this, we're going to start reaching out a little bit, again, to different media people, and start, kind of building that buzz a little bit and letting them know that we're actually going to distribute our music very soon. And we're going to set a date maybe for the end of this 3-month period. We're going to get a distributor. We're going to go through the process of setting up our, DSP profiles with Spotify and Apple and so on and so forth. We're going to do our pre-save campaigns. We're going to get a video done professionally, not too overboard with the helicopters and the horses on the beach and stuff like that. Just a cool performance video that really captures our vibe of what we do and what we're about, right? And then all of a sudden, we're going to hype it on socials, keep our socials going, hype it, and then boom, the record release party is going to hit. We're going to do a record release party in a club. We're going to invite lots of different media people and cover their bar tab if we have to, and really now just kind of let the world know, boom, that here we are and we mean business. And finally, now it's time to take a look at months 10 through 12. Okay, now these next 3 months, we're gonna be on fire, and we're gonna just be kicking ass to let people in the world know that our product is out there and that it exists, and we wanna get people to care about us. We're gonna start doing sync licensing. We're gonna start trying to get our music into film, television, and video games. And we're not just gonna shoot for the top. We're gonna start with ground floor type stuff, trying to get our music into college films, maybe trying to license it with local business and in cool documentary films and that type of thing. We're also going to pitch our music to commercial specialty show radio stations, local radio stations that have the special shows at the end of the week that feature independent artists. We're going to still keep on playing local shows as well, and maybe do some collaborations with other local bands where we can actually borrow some of their audience and they can borrow some of our audience. We might even actually try to play some cool conventions where they have sort of indie stages where we could play, like at the NAMM show or at the Taxi Road Rally, or maybe even South by Southwest. We're going to continue hitting our social hard with a regular schedule, of posting stories, of doing our hashtag strategies, of doing reels, of doing video clips and different types of video clips as well. We're actually going to do some advertising as well, maybe some Instagram ads, some Facebook ads, some TikTok ads. We're just going to be on fire doing as much as we can. And we're also going to hit up bloggers and playlisters, but we're not just going to shoot for the big playlisters and be unrealistic. We're going to actually create our own playlists and try to get fans to create playlists. And we're just going to try to create as much energy and excitement about our record. And we're just going to keep on going and keep our ears and eyes open and take in information from the marketplace and adjust and improve and improve and improve. And then we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about our goals and what we did achieve and what we didn't achieve. And then we're going to set new goals and we're just going to keep on moving forward to reaching our vision. And this is the way it works, you guys. You just got to keep on working. You got to keep on improving and just taking one step closer to getting what you want. Okay, now that we have our goal set, we're going to need something called teammanship. So this is part 4, and we're going to start with number 1, trust. Okay, you guys. So first of all, let me just tell you that teammanship is extremely important to the success of a group. It's kind of like a sports team where everybody is working together, one for all and all for one, to win that big championship, right? And trust is an extremely important part of this because trust essentially tells us that we are confident enough in each other where I can actually know that I can speak up and I can express my opinion about maybe a song idea and not feel that, I am vulnerable in any way. In other words, feel that my ideas are just as welcome as this person's ideas and this person's ideas, no matter how crazy these ideas might be, because that is really the essence of healthy creativity and brainstorming, where you can throw out ideas and people can feel comfortable to do that. And people feel that people are going to be heard and people are going to be given the time of day. And my riff ideas are going to be heard just as much as your riff ideas, etc. So there has to be this bond where we're just in this to win this, man. And everybody is contributing and everybody's on the same page with trying to create and be as successful as we possibly can. And this is all about trust. So that's the first thing that's important in a team. Now let's move on to something called healthy conflict. So you guys, healthy conflict is extremely important to the function of any team. Basically, healthy conflict is the idea that that you can debate certain things, certain decisions openly without this feeling that it's going to hurt people's feelings or it's going to create some sort of grift between the group or something. Because basically, if we're afraid to kind of stand up and say, hey, well, I don't really agree with that. I think we should look and try it this way. If you don't have that kind of thing in a band, then what you basically has is what's called groupthink. That basically means where everybody is just kind of agreeing for the sake of agreeing. And maybe there's resentments that are being formed at the same time as well. So we need to kind of say, no, I really stand by what I'm saying. And I think we really need to look at it this way. But then, of course, with healthy conflict, we also have to realize that, if your idea gets outvoted, it gets outvoted. And this goes back to the trust issue. And you have to trust that you are on a good team and that you have a why team. And you just have to accept the fact that maybe your ideas are not always going to get picked, and you have to learn how to move on. So this is an extremely important part of teammanship as well. Now let's move on to number 3, which is commitment. Commitment is basically this understanding that we all are in this together for the long term. I mean, I am making a commitment to this group, and I know that this is not going to end up being some big waste of time because 4 months from now, somebody is going to bail because they decide that they don't want to do this, or they decide they'd rather go join some other group. I mean, it's essentially like a marriage, right? When you get married, you don't want to put a ring on somebody's finger with the idea that, 6 months from now, they might spot someone else and go off with them, right? That would be completely irresponsible and ridiculous. This has to be a long-term understanding, man, that no matter what, no matter how bad things get, we're going to put in the time to resolve it and to try to improve ourselves and keep on moving forward. And we're not just going to break down. So commitment is extremely important to the success of a band. All right, now let's move on to number 4, which is accountability. The idea that all of the members are going to own up to their own bullshit. Right? If I'm late for a rehearsal, I know that I'm late, and I'm going to walk in and I'm going to say, you guys, man, I am so sorry. I know I was supposed to be here at 6 o'clock, but it's 6:45 or 7:10. I completely effed up, man. It's hard. I overlooked it or I overslept or whatever the case might be, but you own your shit. You don't come in with an attitude kind of like, hey, you guys, what's happening? And then everyone's like, yo, dude, where are you? And then you start getting angry at the fact that they're sort of like, asking you to kind of own up, So this is really maturity and kind of just holding yourself to the highest standard possible, because if you want this group to get anywhere, that's what everybody has to do. Okay, and finally, number 5 is collective results. Collective results basically means that all actions, all decisions are going to be made in the best interest of the band, the company, the team, the family. It's not done for selfish reasons. And unfortunately, you guys, I hate to say this, but I've been in many groups where an individual will want to do something for their own benefit without consideration of whether or not it necessarily benefits the other parties as well. It's what's good for this person is good for that person. That's not the way it works. Sometimes it's going to require a little bit of a sacrifice on your part to make sure that it works for everybody. And it's a team, it's a corporation, right? Working together to achieve your ultimate vision, right? So if you have, one member, let's just say, for example, whose big grand scheme is to eventually leave and start a solo project, right? That's obviously not in the best interest of all parties. The whole thing is going to fall apart, man. So you really have to think about this. Collective results is extremely important in the functioning of a professional team. All right, you guys, finally coming to the conclusion of this short mini course on everything you need to start and run a band. I just want to remind you that being in a band can be the most amazing thing in the world, but it's not something that's easy for someone like me or for you. But with these tools, I think you now have the tools to go out there, start a group, and succeed.
If you want to learn more about how you can turn your passion for music into a more successful business, be sure to check out this video or the video linked in the description below.